CUSO International is an international development organization based in Canada, but also operating in the US, and we operate programs in about 35 countries around the world, mostly in Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, and Southeast Asia. The work that we do spans a whole range of thematic areas, from education and health to natural resource management, working on climate change, and especially increasingly these days, economic development, especially focused on creating employment opportunities for youth in many countries around the world. A lot of our work is focused on what we call capacity building. So working with local partners to help them develop the skills and competencies that they need in order to be able to implement the plans that they have to overcome poverty in their own communities. And to do that in a way that leads to sustainability. What we do is we make volunteer professionals available for periods of between 3 months and 2 years to work with our local partners in helping them to develop the abilities, the skills, the competencies to be able to carry out their own programs going forward on their own in the future. A large part of our work, especially in Africa, has also been on helping to build national volunteering movements, because we believe that volunteering is not only a means, such as delivering skills to a local community, but it's also an end, because we know that in order to sustainably overcome poverty and lead to growth and development, societies need not only financial investments, they need not only to be able to produce jobs and have economic growth, they need to be able to create the means to support healthy, vibrant, dynamic civil societies. And we know that volunteering is at the foundation of any healthy civil society. We've been involved in working with diaspora communities in North America for about 6 years now. We currently have diaspora volunteering programs in relation to about 10 countries, Peru, Jamaica, Ethiopia, Kenya, the Philippines, Rwanda, Guyana, Bolivia, Nigeria, Cameroon, but the list is expanding gradually as we go forward. Diaspora communities for many years have been seen predominantly as a kind of brain drain from developing countries to the developed countries in the north. Too often that remains the case. But I think we all know that diaspora communities are increasingly seen in a globalized world as one of the key resources to effective international development going forward. We all know about the important role that diaspora communities play in terms of financial transfers through remittances or direct investment in developing countries. For CUSO International, we recognize that there's also an important role that's played by diaspora communities in making volunteer skills available to their countries of heritage or origin. We work always with a direct partner in the field. That might be a ministry of the local government, it might be a municipal government, or it might be a local civil society organization or an NGO. Whatever that partner is, we invest a lot of time in making sure that we are serving their needs and their interests, because we're trying to build sustainable solutions going forward. That's very much the case as well with the diaspora programming that we do. We think that it's absolutely critical as the foundation point that any involvement of diasporas in volunteering for development be firmly grounded in a partnership model that puts the focus on the local partner in the field, enabling, supporting, and equipping them going forward, and putting them as much as possible in the driver's seat. Initially, we thought, well, we'll just start to recruit volunteers from diaspora community organizations in Canada and the US, the same way as we do with the general public. We soon found out, we soon were told, and we listened clearly to the diaspora communities that we were working with, that they also needed support if they were going to be able to engage the international development challenge effectively. There can be a real assumption that volunteers from the diaspora community don't need to be prepared to go to their country of heritage or origin in order to volunteer, because they have the language, the skills, the background, the experience of the home country. And that's all true. And indeed, it's those very characteristics that make diaspora volunteers such a valuable resource and able to make such a major contribution in a quick way in the field of international development. However, preparing to work in development requires preparation, training, reflection, and especially on the part of members of the diaspora community from Canada, the United States, or Ireland, it requires a real sensitivity to some of the differences that will exist and tensions that may exist in the return and engagement of a diaspora volunteer in their country of origin or heritage.
Going back as a Peruvian, back to my country, I think it made for an easy sort of integration with the CUSO staff there in Lima. I felt pretty immediately at home with them, chatting. So I'm from Lima, and I worked in Lima, but I was able to travel to the jungle, to Tarapoto, as well as to Arequipa. I have an understanding of sort of how Canadian society works and the resources and assets that we have here, and sort of the mindsets and the values. And I have an understanding of that in Peru as well. And I think, and it's not, obviously it's not all about sort of the North giving to the South, but sort of trying to find complementarities and how to work together to reduce poverty. In the skills for working in development workshops that we do here at CUSO before going on our placement, they tell us about the iceberg metaphor, where there's an iceberg, and what the tip of the iceberg is you're seeing sort of people's behaviors, but underneath there's a lot of like values and beliefs and things that aren't apparent. So you need to find, so the person there has their own iceberg and you have your own iceberg, and you need to find a penguin that can swim underwater and see sort of what's lying beneath. So that's a bit of sort of the role that I felt I had sometimes, like that penguin that could swim between the two icebergs.